So we're actually approaching 200 people in the room, but it's 9:30, so we're going to have to get started. So first things first, I'm going to say a couple of thank yous. Firstly, I want to thank the Dublin Bay Biosphere partners for providing the funding for this webinar series. I want to thank the NPWS for providing funding for the webinar license so that we can have so many in the room, which was really important. We wanted to deliver this message to as many people as possible all around Ireland. We know there's only 2 biospheres in Ireland, but hopefully we'll inspire a few more. So I'm going to pass over to Eleanor. Eleanor's going to tell you a little bit about biospheres and why they're so important. So Eleanor, over to you.
Thanks, Dean. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. I did make a lovely presentation to get started with this morning.
Oh, look at this.
So this is just our welcome slide. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction to what UNESCO Biosphere Reserves are and give you a quick whirlwind tour of the 2 that we have in Ireland. So what are biosphere reserves? Well, they're places where nature and culture connect. So they always have an element of nature conservation, which tends to be in the centre, which is what we call the core zone. So, for example, in Dublin Bay, you've got some protected areas around Bull Island there. And then in Kerry, we've got Killarney National Park, which is a protected area. And then it's not just about nature conservation for biosphere reserves. We're also really interested in how people work with nature. So it's about how the people that are living in the area make their livelihoods, how they run their businesses, and how they enjoy themselves as well. So it's about how we use recreation or use the area for recreation. And we're trying to encourage people to do all of this in a sustainable way. So when we say a sustainable way, we mean in a way that doesn't hurt the planet. So we're trying to do things in a way that benefits nature rather than taking things away from nature. There is a short video there on YouTube that you can watch in your own time. If you watch back on the thing, you can find the link there. So like I said, it's where nature and culture interact. Now, I call them UNESCO Biosphere Reserves. So just to pedal backwards a little bit and explain what UNESCO is. So UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And that's a global organization. So there's biosphere reserves all over the world. Now, as I mentioned, there's a few different zones. So in the core zone, which is the green section in the middle, that's where we really focus on nature conservation. In the buffer zone around that is where we start to see people using the area for work or for recreation, but trying to do that, as I said, in an environmentally sustainable way. And then in the transition area is where we tend to see a lot more of our bigger towns. Like in Dublin, you actually have a capital city in your transition zone of your biosphere reserve, which is really unique. So that's where we start to encourage more people to get involved in the conservation actions that are happening within the core area. So where do we find them? Worldwide, there's 714, but there's only 2 so far in Ireland. So we have Dublin Bay Biosphere Reserve over here on the east coast, and then over in the southwest, we have Kerry Biosphere Reserve. Now, hopefully, we will add a few more in the years to come. So if you feel inspired, definitely speak to your communities about getting involved. So where is the Dublin Bay Biosphere Reserve? Loosely put, it's around here. It does include parts of Dublin City, which is really impressive to have a capital city in your biosphere reserve, but it also has really important areas for natural and cultural heritage, some of which Máiread is going to talk about today. Here's the lovely, lovely map that we have of Dublin Bay that shows some of the ways that the area is used. So you can see there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of industry, but then there's also a lot of culture and a lot of recreation as well. So it's about how those things can all work together in an environmentally sustainable way. Now, the Kerry Biosphere Reserve is actually a landlocked biosphere reserve. It's right here in the centre of Kerry. It covers areas around Killarney National Park and the McGillicuddy Reeks. So here's a map of the Kerry Biosphere Reserve. So the red area in the centre is Killarney National Park, and that's our core zone. So that's where we focus on nature conservation. The orange areas around that are the buffer zone, and that includes Ireland's highest mountain range, the McGillicuddy Reeks, and Ireland's highest mountain, Carrauntoohil. And then we have the transition area that includes our lovely towns like Beaufort, Killarney, Barraduff and Kilcummin. So now I'm actually going to hand back to Dean for a few minutes, and then we'll move on to Máiread and explore the seashore. So I'll stop sharing, Dean, so you can jump in.
Thank you. I just want to share a couple of things, basically just to share what else we're doing to support environmental education. So here we go. Let's see if we can get this going if we can. So there's the first image. We talked about the Dublin Bay Biosphere there and how the capital city is part of our biosphere. And there's a really great shot showing the whole of Dublin Bay and the River Liffey flowing through. So that's our biosphere. But what are we doing as far as education and communication? Well, this is the second series of webinars. So we had a homeschool webinar series back in March, which is available on the Kerry YouTube channel. And by the way, all of these webinars are going to be available on the Kerry YouTube channel after they're finished, and Eleanor's had chance to upload them, so you'll get to see them again and learn more, tell your friends about them. But this is a 4-part series that's taking place throughout the month of May, with the final one, how to become a wildlife champion, putting all the stuff that we learned together and how we can look after and care for our planet. So that's really important, but they're all important as far as learning. We're also running a program where we have a Dublin Bay Biosphere Award. This is developed in partnership with Scouting Ireland, and it's a 3-part program where we're trying to get people to connect with nature, so get outdoors and experience what's around you, to understand the processes going on. So these are things that you'd learn about in class and you'll learn about in these webinars, how we are all connected. And then the final part of the program is how to take action. Now you can find more about that on the Dublin Bay Biosphere website. And we're giving you an early insight to this. This is not being launched for another couple of weeks, but this is a badge that's going to be open to people, and we're happy for people to engage with that all around Ireland if they wish to. And the other thing that we've got launched at the moment, and you notice there an image on the right hand side has a little picture of the Isle of Man. So we've got a young nature bloggers program, and this program was launched by the Isle of Man, and it's involving a number of biospheres in Ireland and the UK. We're asking young people to write about nature, write about biospheres, and share that with us, and also send us some of your pictures of the biospheres, or even your local communities and your local environment. And we'll share those stories on our social media, and there's prizes for the best. So I wanted to share that with you. And again, more information on the Kerry Biosphere website, because they're participating, and the Dublin Bay Biosphere website. So that's enough of that. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to hand you over to the main event. That's Máiread. And Máiread, you're going to give us some really great insights into Seashores. So over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Isn't this way better than doing Irish or maths or English? I tell you, I wish I was doing stuff like this when I was in national school. You're all very welcome. So I'm Máiread, and I am from NatureCubsIreland, and I'm going to be talking to you this morning about seashores. And I hope I'm going to be introducing some kind of fun stuff for you to look for on seashores. And in the next few weeks, if you join in as well, teachers, cover your ears. I'm going to be saying something rude. We're going to be talking a lot about animal poo. Right, because I'm a zoologist and that's what we do. We look for animal poo. It tells us everything about animals. So join in next week and you'll learn more. Okay, today, back to the seashore. Okay, you ready to come and explore? Let's see what we find. Okay, so where are we in these pictures? Are we in Spain? It's been a while since we got in an airplane, guys. Is that Portugal? Is Italy? No, it's not. It's Ireland. And these amazing beaches. We're an island, and we sometimes forget that. And we have the most stunning beaches. The one on top is a beach in Dublin. The one on the bottom is a beach down in Kerry. And actually, that beach at the bottom is called Inch Beach. And do you know what's found on that beach? Toads, the natterjack toad. Isn't that very cool? They're a bit like frogs, but they're really special because they're only found down in Kerry. Now, I promise you I'm going to be showing you some cool stuff in a sec, but I wanted to tell you something that not many people know about. Do you know Ireland? You recognize the green map there, the green bit, okay? So that is what you're used to seeing. But Ireland actually owns all of this ocean inside the red line. That is all belonging to us, and that is all ocean. 22,000 acres of ocean around our island of Ireland. So we have the most amazing marine life all around us. So before we start, I want to tell you a short story about this amazing little bird called an Arctic tern. And it comes to Ireland every single year. It comes in its thousands. This little bird has the longest migration of any known animal in the animal kingdom. It comes from the Arctic and Greenland the whole way to Ireland every single year. It sometimes even goes the whole way down here to the Antarctic. It's unbelievable. It'll travel 22,000 kilometers in one go. These are incredible birds. And this is a cool story about the kinds of things that us zoologists do to help little animals along our coastline. So the Arctic tern nests on the ground. And so comes the whole way and arrives in Ireland. And we have made these special platforms out in Dublin Bay, specially for this little bird. That's the adult. And we've put in these little edges so that the little chicks don't, oh, there's one. Look, there's a little chick there. So that they don't fall over the edge into the water. And these are little covers so they can snuggle in underneath them. And there is the little chick. And these are people who are putting a little ring on the chick's leg. And that's really important because then we can figure out that these guys go 22,000 kilometers in one go. Isn't that really cool? I just thought I'd tell you about him. I think that's a really nice little story. So what else do we have around our coastline? Loads. We have seals. We have dolphins. I bet most of you have never heard of this little guy. He's called a porpoise. Hands up in your classroom, who has heard of a porpoise? You see, I told you, not that many of you. The Irish for porpoise is muck mara, which means pig of the sea. And that's because he's kind of a little bit roundy. That's probably the best way to describe him. He's like the squidgy, small first cousin of the dolphin. And most of the time we don't realize what he is. He loves to basically find himself in amongst the waves close to the beach. And he'll porpoise, which is the name of the activity that dolphins do as well, where they jump out of the waves. So if you're driving along or in a train along the coast and you see something that looks like a little dolphin jumping in waves, I bet you it's one of these little guys, the porpoise. Now I'm going to tell you another story about something that comes to our coast and you're going to say, Máiread, you are nuts. I promise you, this is the truth. I promise I wouldn't lie to you. We get killer whales coming to Ireland. I mean it. I'm not joking. This guy in this picture is called John Coe. Do you see his dorsal fin, which is this bit here? Do you see it's kind of got a little cut in it? So we know that this is John Coe because he's got this cut. And scientists have been watching him. He lives in Scotland, in the Outer Hebrides Island, but every year he comes and he kind of swims around. Now, don't worry when you're on holidays this summer. Don't be afraid to get into the water thinking there's killer whales because he's way out, okay? He's too big to come in close to shore. I'm going to show you a video that was taken last summer. Like, it's really amazing. This was taken last summer in County Down. Watch this. And this is John Coe. Look, do you see the notch in his tail again? This is Ireland. Isn't that amazing? How cool is that, guys? Okay. We have really unbelievable animals living around our coast in Ireland, I tell you. Okay, from the huge big killer whale. By the way, here's a question, hands up. Is the killer whale, is it a whale or is it something else? Hands up. You can say it to your teacher. Let me hear. Who says it's something else? You're right. It's not a whale at all. It's a dolphin. The killer whale is the biggest dolphin in the world. And the reason it's called a killer whale is because it's been known to kill whales, small little whales, because they're predators, aren't they? So isn't that cool? You can go home and tell that now at home. Right, from huge, big dolphins to tiny little things along our coast. This is the stuff that you'll be finding in our beaches and along our beaches this summer when you go on your holidays. Rock pools. These are full of deadly little creatures like sea anemones. You know, these are the little red squidgy things, and you stick your finger into them carefully and they kind of close up. You have to be very gentle. They're little animals. Or starfish, or all of these little beautiful shells. Okay. If you're squeamish, cover your ears. I'm going to tell you a disgusting story about a starfish. Who wants to hear a disgusting story about starfish? Hands up. Cool. Okay. So first of all, where do you find their eyes? That's not disgusting. This is not the disgusting bit. Have a look at this picture. Do you see there's knobbly bits at the end of the legs? That's their eyes. They have an eye at the tip of each of their legs. And now I know you all know the bit about if one leg gets chomped off and grows back. I know you all know that. That's not the disgusting bit. Are you ready? Okay, this is kind of hard to do in a webinar. Normally I'm in a classroom and I can do all my actions. Okay, I'm a starfish. Okay, pretend I'm a starfish. These are two of my legs and I'm moving along the bottom of the ocean floor, okay? My mouth is on the bottom of my belly, down here. My mouth is down here. So picture I'm a starfish and I'm moving along and my mouth is underneath my body, okay? How do I eat? Well, first of all, what I eat is little shellfish, like this kind of little guy. And when he opens up, there's a little animal inside and they eat that, okay? So what he does is the starfish is moving along and he puts his mouth, which is under his body, over the shellfish and he uses the muscle of his mouth to open it. And then here's the disgusting bit. Cover your ears if you don't want to hear it. He basically lets his stomach fall out of his mouth onto the shellfish, sucks it up, pulls his stomach back in through the mouth and into his body and eats the shellfish. I'm glad I'm not a starfish. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. I'm going to show you, oh no, not yet. These doozers, I know you've all seen these guys. They're barnacles. See these little fellas? I like to call them a housing estate in the ocean. They live on lots of things. They live on other shells. And let me see, here's another shell with some on it. You'll see them on stones. So basically, these guys, there's a little animal that lives inside each of these little houses. And that's their front door. These are like a terraced housing estate, okay? Joe O'Brien lives there. Mary O'Mara lives there. These are all barnacles living right next to each other. They, watch this. I'm going to show you something. No, I'll show you in a second. The door opens when the tide comes in over them. And a little foot comes out. And it basically eats everything that's in the tide above it. Plankton, tiny little stuff, okay? And then when the tide goes back out, foot comes in, the door closes, and they wait until the tide comes in again. Isn't that kind of cool? These guys are a little bit, kind of a bit the same. These are clams. And I know you've all seen these. So again, there is a clam or there is a clam shell. And inside these live little animals, okay? So watch this. The reason that clams and barnacles and mussels, all these kind of shellfish are really important is that they clean the water around them. They're called filter feeders. And I'm going to show you how that happens. It's really amazing. Okay, so these clams are in a tank. What's going to happen, I'm going to have to sound off for different reasons on this. And the scientist is going to shoot some green food, algae, in on top of them and watch what happens to the water. So they dig down in, that's a foot, that's after popping out, that's a little foot. They dig down into the ground, right? Now, that's the green food that's been sprayed over them. Watch this. See those little things starting to pop up? They are called siphons. And they're like a special little foot that pops up out of the shell. And it sucks in all the algae and they eat it. And look how clean the water is now. So these are amazing creatures. And not only that, then any dirt that's left behind, anything else that's on the bottom of the floor of the sea gets to eat it. So aren't they amazing? So these are called filter feeders because they basically filter in all the yucky stuff that we don't like and they clean the water. I know y'all are used to seaweed, but there's loads of different kinds of seaweed. So all I'm going to say is this summer, when you're on your holidays, keep your eye out, use your nature eyes and look for the different kinds of seaweeds that there are, okay? And if you want, I have a list of all the different seaweeds and we can send it on to your teachers. It's no problem. So just there's different colors. And to see these little bubbles in the seaweed, you'll have all seen these. These are full of air and they help the seaweed to float. This huge seaweed grows in Ireland and it's called kelp. And it's like a jungle and it grows a little bit further out. Now, if you're along Kerry, you'll especially see this, or Clare or Limerick or Donegal, along the west coast, you really see it. It's huge and it forms a forest like a jungle in the ocean. It's really important for animals because seals swim through it and there's lots of fish in it. And then there's smaller little plankton. It's full of life. The kelp forest is really important. I'm just going to have a little chat to you about some of the threats to our coastal wildlife. And then I'm going to take you on a tour of the beach, okay? You all know about plastic. I want you to think about something that has become a very common kind of plastic rubbish in the last year. What's happened in the last year that's changed all our lives? COVID, exactly. What are we finding thrown on the ground as we walk along? Yep, masks. Look at this. This is a baby seagull. What's wrapped around his legs? Masks. Masks are becoming a big problem. They're made of plastic. I know that there's cloth in them, but a lot of that cloth has plastic parts as well. So we have to be really careful about picking up our masks, okay? Shopping bags. Ireland has been brilliant with this. We were the first country in Europe to stop just giving out plastic shopping bags, and now we're brilliant. We use our reusable shopping bags all the time. Now, I know this is a little bit upsetting, but I just thought I'd show you this picture. You know when you open a bottle of milk, or if your mum or dad open a bottle of milk, there's this little ring at the top. Sometimes that ring ends up in the ocean, and what happens? It gets stuck on little animals because they're really curious. And they peck at it with their beak. Sometimes it ends up badly. So a really simple thing to do is use a scissors and just clip it and snip it before you pop it in the bin. The same with these can tops. This poor seagull is caught up in the can top. Very simple, use a scissors, cut it, open the loops and pop it in the bin. Last little thing. So I have two dogs. You probably hear one in the background. She is not happy because I have her out of the room at the moment. I love my dogs and I love bringing them for walks. But one of the reasons that our biospheres is because of all the birds that come to feed there every year. So Dublin Bay Biosphere gets 30,000 birds flying from the Arctic and Greenland and Canada every winter. 30,000 arrive into Dublin Bay. The reason they do that is to feed on little snails and special grasses that are in the bay. They have to build up energy. Remember I said the little tern, he can fly 22,000 kilometers. He's exhausted. He's got to eat and he's got to build up energy. So what I say is if you're walking your dog, in the winter especially, or whenever you see little birds on the ground, put your dog on the lead. Don't let them chase those birds because they really need to build up energy and they really don't need to be having to fly away all the time. See these little guys? These are little sanderlings and they come the whole way from Siberia, okay? They really don't need to be chased by dogs. And remember our little tern chick? How cute is this? He nests on the ground. So imagine if a dog came along. That's not good. Sure, it's not. So keep your dog on a lead if you think that there's going to be birds nearby. And clean up the poop. That's a big thing. Ooh, we all hate dog poop. Okay, are you ready to go on a tour? I'm going to bring you now to the beach because of COVID. We can't go out. I know. Hopefully next year will be different. And instead, what I did was I went out to a beach on Bull Island. I know it's a funny name. It's Dollymount Strand in Dublin. Come with me. Let's take a tour. And by the way, it was really windy when I went out there. So excuse all the wind and all the sound. You ready?
Welcome to North Bull Island. This is one of the most amazing spots
Sorry.
for little animals. These are bryozoans.
Oh no, I moved forward. Let's start again. I was trying to turn up the
You
volume.
can visit. It's a jewel in the crown of Dublin City. So we're walking along Dollymount Strand, and it's amazing what you can find when you're beachcombing. I found lovely sponges and shells along here. So look at these. These are mussel shells, and it's covered in barnacles. And I love to describe barnacles as being like a semi-detached housing estate. Inside those little doors is a little animal, and that's another house, and that's another house. Each one is a separate little barnacle, which is a separate little animal house. And these have totally adapted to tides coming in and going out. So when the tide covers the barnacle, the little door opens up and a little foot comes out, and it grabs at food in the water and it brings it back in. And then when the tide goes back out, the door closes and it protects the little animal living inside. So these are very cool. And actually there's more. These tiny little, what looks like dots, are little individual houses for little animals. These are bryozoans. And I don't know if you can see that, but each tiny little shape has a little animal which you can't see inside, and they kind of work the same way as the barnacles. So you've got two different kinds of sea creatures living on another sea creature right there. What's also really fun when you're out collecting on the beach is to bring stuff home, and that's okay. And do crafts with them. It's lovely you can stick these on flower pots, you can do painting designs with them, you can paint them. Let's see, let's have a look around. Oh, this is a nice find right here. This guy, and it looks like just bubble wrap. This is from a snail that lives in the ocean here in Dublin Bay. It's the whorl snail. And the whorl snail lays its eggs, and each egg is inside one of those little bladders of air to protect them. And then the eggs leave the individual little places and go out into the ocean. So this is from a big snail or a small snail called a whorl snail.
Máiread, can you turn up the volume there, please, if at all possible?
I can't believe this. This is very unusual to find so many things in one place. I think I might just stand here and we'll see what appears. It's a cuttlefish bone, and cuttlefish are related to octopus, but they keep their skeleton on the outside of their body. They're exoskeleton, and this is what that is. And in order to grow, they have to shed one skeleton and then they grow another one. So that is a very cool thing. And you see, it's really light, and inside there's all those layers. So there's air in between each of those, and that keeps it floating, it keeps it buoyant. So that's an amazing find here in Dollymount Strand. Very cool. So this here is the snail I was telling you about. So, do you remember I said that that's the egg case? That there was loads of little eggs in that from a snail? That's the snail, the whorl snail. So you recognize that. You can see big ones and small ones. That's a beautiful one right there. I'm going to wander up around the sand dunes and see, do I see anything? Bits of timber coming in from the ocean. You wonder where they came from. You can see here, this is erosion of the front of the sand dunes. You can see how the wind comes in and it starts eroding. So further back up the beach, you'll have seen rocks and boulders, and that's to hold the sand in place so that these pieces of grass, the marram grass or the dune grass, can start growing. This is the start of the sand dunes. It's called embryonic sand dunes, right here. We're having a very lucky day today. I think it must be because it's so windy. The wind must be churning up lots out of the ocean. This is a mermaid's purse. In Dublin Bay, we have rays and skates. They're the big flatfish, and they have little embryos. And the little embryos are the baby rays and skates, and they actually live inside these sacs for the first while to protect them. And then the embryo comes out, becomes an adult ray or skate, and these little, what's called mermaid's purses, are left floating in the ocean. So there's actually loads of different kinds depending on the type of fish. So that's a lovely find, and it's gone again. So we really are finding loads today. And I think it must be because the stormy conditions throwing everything up. What else we got here? Oh, this is nice. This is an oyster shell. And it's got the barnacles. See the oyster shell? You can always tell it because it's got kind of a layered system. It's got barnacles. Those squiggly things are from snails, the casts of the trails of snails. So again, a nice find. So what we might do is start heading up into the sand dunes, I think, because I'm getting really windblown. Here's another oyster shell. Again, if you look at the oyster shells, you'll find that they have different layers to them, so they're kind of easy, and they tend to be fairly flat. So I was telling you that with the sand dunes in Bull Island, there's 4 different kinds. And that's really unusual because that means that they're really well established. So we have the young ones at the front, the embryonic ones. And then we've different layers or successions of dunes depending on how long they've been here. And this marram grass is so important, it holds them in place. And this is the best type of coastal protection you can have. It basically takes the energy out of waves and it pushes the waves back out again. So let's see what we find in the sand dunes today. It's generally not a good idea to come up here with shorts on because the marram grass can be really spiky. So in the sand dunes, you can see there's like these hollows. I'm going to go down into one. And they're called Dune Slacks. And they have their own ecology. And in fact, there's one really important dune slack in Bull Island sand dunes, but it's a good bit up. It's the alder slack where there's alder trees. And there's actually some fresh water as well as salt water because it's where the water table comes up and it tends to be a very wet area. So what I'm looking for here as I walk along is caterpillars and different kinds of little insects that you wouldn't find in other places. It's a very, very windy day, so I'm very surprised we have a bee here. Maybe it's too windy and cold for him and he's just taking a break. We'll leave him there. All right, let's go explore and see what we find. The Bull Island is famous for its plants and its sand dune plants. And actually, next month in August, if you come here, you will find it is alive and full of beautifully coloured orchids. But I think we might find some today. So we just got to explore a little bit and have a look. So I'm walking along here through the sand dunes, and here are some orchids are starting to appear. So this is the pyramidal orchid. These sand dunes are just covered in flowers and orchids, and it is stunning. There must have been a fire here during the very warm weather because you can see that the marram grass has been burned, and this can happen naturally or that's I guess something that can happen where you've got such proximity to an urban population. Somebody might have been out here maybe barbecuing or something, even though it's a nature reserve. So we really need to respect the habitats out here. So we've come down into kind of a dune slack, and already we're seeing different kinds of plants. So this lovely one is lady's bedstraw. Oh my God, we have a cinnabar moth. So these moths have yellow and black caterpillars, which we find in ragwort. So I hope that we can find lovely clumps of ragwort, and I can show you what the caterpillars look like. So this here is called Our Lady's bedstraw, or it's called Our Lady's bedstraw, it's just called lady's bedstraw, and it's because there's a story that when Mary gave birth to Jesus, she actually used this to put into his manger. And years ago, this was broken down and used as a kind of a stuffing, and it was used to fill pillows and mattresses before memory foam was invented. So of course we've got animals, bigger animals than insects living on the sand dunes, and one of them is the rabbit. And it's a lovely animal to try and find when you're out with kids, because they get a great kick out of finding the rabbit poo. So here we have piles of rabbit poo, which is really easy, obviously, to identify, and it looks like a rabbit burrow. So rabbits in the wild are what's called crepuscular, and it means that they tend to come out mostly at dawn and dusk. We saw a few minutes ago that beautiful red and black moth. Well, this is its caterpillar. Isn't it beautiful? So they're all kinds of sizes. We've got very small ones and big ones. There's another one here. So it has beautiful colors in its young and its adult stages. We're going to finish up for the day. We have found so much already on Bull Island, but you could spend a whole day out here. There are birds, there are insects, there's flowers. It's just a beautiful place, and don't forget to go for a swim and bring your picnic. If you're bringing your dogs, keep them on a lead, because this is a nature reserve, and come and visit Bull Island. It really is a magic place in the city. Thank you.
So I hope you felt like you were at the ocean and you're rubbing the sand out of your eyes, everybody. Are you rubbing? That's the one thing I have to say when I go to the beach and I get sand between my toes. Don't particularly like that. Okay, so it gave you a feel for all the things that we can find on the seashore. Okay, teachers, this is something you can do in class with the kids, okay? So whether you are, okay, if you're not close to a beach right now, but maybe during the summer you can collect some of these things, okay? And if you do live along the coast, if you're visiting any beaches over the next few weekends, maybe you can bring some of your findings into class. So teachers, you'll have access to this presentation, and each of these kind of guides I'm showing you has a link in it, and you just click on it and it'll bring you to the link, okay? So if you were to bring your shells into the classroom, there's this lovely guide to tell you what the different shells are. And I'm going to show you some stuff here. Hold on a second. Now, as I move my computer, I have a couple of trays of things that I collected on the beach. And we're going to maybe use this guide, which I have. Now I'm going to do a new share on my screen, or stop share. Now, can you see my face? Can you see me? Okay, so I've got one of these guides here and I've laminated it with my little laminator. And can you see my few bits and bobs? Okay, so what you saw was that I found one of those on the beach, a mermaid's purse. Now there's different kinds of ones though. Look at these ones. So depending on the animal and depending on the fish, there's going to be different sizes. And you see these kinds of, let me just put this up. I'll do it like this. Do you see those strings? What they're for is they basically twirl around pieces of seaweed and hold on to them, okay? And then the little baby ray or shark, because there are sharks, not big dangerous ones, don't worry, around Ireland, and they come out of these little cases. It's really amazing, isn't it? Okay, what else? Look at this. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? This is called an echinoderm. Here's a different form of it. Now, I want to show you something. I want you to count out loud how many stripes you see. Stripes that go up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you know any other animal that we've talked about today that has 5 legs? Yes, that's right, the starfish. This guy is related to the starfish. And in here will be his body, that's his shell, okay? And underneath here, he's got a set of jaws called Aristotle's lantern. What a name, isn't that bizarre? And chomps and things along the seafloor. Isn't that cool? I found this on the beach. What else did I find? This is, so when I was saying in the video, whorl snail, that's kind of my makey-uppy name. I should say the real name. It's a whelk snail. And the reason I say whorl is because it goes around in whorls. That's my way of remembering it. It's actually a whelk is the real name. I should probably use the real words. Now, what else have I found here? Oh, so in my house, some of the things can be very smelly because I collect all kinds of interesting things. It's a bit smelly. What have I got here? What does this look like to you? Do you think it's a shell? What is that? Is it a shell of a snail? Does that look any better? Yes, it's a crab shell. Exactly. See where the eyes would be? So there's all different kinds and sizes. And yes, I collect them. Am I a bit mad like that? And look what's growing on it. Barnacles, the housing estate animals, exactly. Okay, this, I want to show you to be careful with this. When you find this on the beach, it's a razor clam shell. Do you remember the clams you saw? And where are you gone now? All my bits and pieces. Okay, these doozers. And they bury down into the ground and the little siphon came up. We saw that. Now, this is another kind of clam. Different shape. And I just broke it. It goes down into the sand. And then the little siphon comes up. They're called razor clams because they are razor sharp. So if you see these on the beach, you've got to be super careful because you could cut your hand or your foot. Okay? Imagine how far down into the sand they go because they're very long, aren't they? And this, I'm just going to show it up close. I did show it in the video. Some of you might have little birds as pets at home, okay? And you might keep them in cages. And if you do, you might have this stuff, cuttlefish bone, that you buy in the pet shop and you put it in the cage and the bird sharpens his beak against it. This is the skeleton of the cuttlefish. Now, the cuttlefish is cool in many ways. Well, he has his bones on the outside for starters. These are his bones. They're really light to see. Can you see there? I'm going to turn my light off. One sec, give me a sec. This might be easier to see. Is it any better? Not really. There's kind of layers in there and they're full of air and it kind of helps it to float. These guys, cuttlefish and squid, and they're all related. Do you know how they protect themselves in the wild? So if they're being followed, pretend this has got legs. I'm not very good at doing things backwards. This is very confusing. Okay, there's his legs. Swimming through the ocean. Something's coming along behind him. And he's like, no, I'm going to be eaten. What does he do? All this ink squirts out of his bottom. I didn't say that word. And the ink comes out. You can't see him anymore. He's gone. The predator is like, what? Ew! And he's escaped. Isn't that cool? Do you know what we use that ink for? In olden times, you know, the photos were all kind of black and white and they were kind of a funny browny color. That's called sepia. And that comes from That's the ink that comes from these doozers. Isn't that kind of amazing? Isn't it unbelievable the stuff that we find on our beach? What else have we got? We've got these cool, look at that. That is called a pelican's foot shell. I don't know what a pelican's foot looks like. Do you? That's what it's called. Isn't that kind of deadly? Oh, did you see that? Sand came out on top of my computer. That's not so good. We've got this cool stuff, the bubble wrap. That came from the whelk snail. Okay, and inside each of those was a little egg, and then it kind of went out and it became a grown-up, which is that. So as you can see, oh, one last thing. This is mussel shell. Some of you who live in Dublin might know the song Molly Malone, "In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty." Okay, you can sing that in your own time. She sings about mussels, which are these little shellfish, and inside is a food which we like to eat nowadays as well. And they live in there, and there are mussels. Okay, so this is just some of the cool stuff. And so teachers, you can download these lovely guides. And I'm going to show you something else you can do in class. Okay, let me go back. And I know you all kind of have to start leaving soon. And thank you if you're just going to head off. I want to say thanks for joining in. Something else you can do is there is a lovely little survey in Ireland called the Purse Search Survey. Am I sharing my screen? Can you see me or can you see the screen? Which is it? Can you see my face?
We can see both.
Both. Oh, good. Okay, perfect. So Purse Search Ireland, and the link is in this presentation again. And what you do is you basically, and I know you're all brilliant at computers, I know my kids are, you upload on a really safe link. It's safe because it's a science link, okay? Which ones that you see, and if you can take pictures, because people want to know what kind of little sharks and little rays we have living around Ireland, okay? It's a really cool thing. And you get this, you can download this identification to the different kinds. Do you see here, do you see on the picture, there's this funny looking creature. I actually have a big one, big picture of it here. Where is it? Whoop. See that? That's a flatfish. That's a ray. You've seen them in aquariums. They come out of these, okay, mermaid's purses. And you get an identification for the different kinds of ones there are. And teachers, this is a really fun thing to do. See what you find and you send it into the website, Purse Search. The other thing you do is there's Explore Your Shore, which is kind of what we've been doing today. And this is another series of lovely little seashore surveys. Citizen science is what it's called. It's the proper name. You don't need to know about that. If you click into each of these, teacher, the link is on this presentation. You can see the little things that you can do and you just send in your information, and it's a really lovely, it's a really good science project because this is how we know what is all around our coast. This is how we know if some species are in decline or are being threatened. This is how we know what's doing well. So it's fun, but it's important. And talking about fun and important, this is the best thing. Go have fun. In Ireland, we're great at this. We don't need a sunny day. We just jump into the water. Have fun. But I want you to learn 2 numbers. These are really important phone numbers. Emergency numbers. Because when you're beside water, you have to be super careful. Okay? So if you know the number 999, you can phone that. If somebody you know is in trouble in the water, or someone you don't know is in trouble in the water, or you can phone 112 and that calls the Coast Guard. Okay, so have fun this summer at the beach, everybody. It's going to be amazing. And I hope you join us next week when we're going to be doing animal detective and cool stuff. And we're looking for animal poo and we'll have a great time. So I'm going to hand you back over now to Dean and Eleanor. And it was just absolutely lovely to see you all this morning.
All right, thank you so much. What an interesting presentation. We're getting loads and loads of positive comments from people who have enjoyed learning about what can be found on our seashore, which is amazing. But we've also got a load of questions coming through, so we're going to fire one or two at you for the next 10 minutes, because we've got 10 more minutes for those of you that can stay with us. So the first one here is, are the Arctic terns parents okay with you putting rings on their children's feet? That was from Eva, sorry, in 6th class in Brankrana.
Eva, that's a super question. So I want to tell you a little story. So I had the wonderful experience of paddling out in a rowboat to one of those platforms in Dublin Bay. I did this a few times with a man called Oscar Myrne, who was the most amazing bird scientist. And when we went out there, all of the little chicks went running and all the mums and dads flew up and everyone was really scared. So what we did was we just stopped and we waited. And we let everything calm down. And then the adults realized, oh, wait, they're not going to hurt us or our babies. And very gently, we would pick up a little baby and put a little ring on it and put it back. And because we were quiet and gentle and we waited a few minutes, it allowed everything to kind of settle down. And then we did it as quickly as we could so that we could then leave the colony as quickly as we could and let all the mums and dads get back with their babies. So I would say, honestly, I'd say they were a little bit frightened, but we did it the best way we could. And the reason we do this is so we can learn about them, that we can track them. That when people identify a ring, which is a number on it in Greenland, and it's number 324, and then they find it in South Africa, ring 324, it's like, oh my gosh, these birds are flying really big distances. So now we know we've got to do things to help this bird. We know we've got to put a platform in Dublin Bay to help them because they've come so far. So it's really important to do this kind of research. And we do it using animal welfare, which means we do it in the best way to not hurt the animal. It doesn't hurt them. It's not even like an earring in our ears because it doesn't go into their skin. It's like a ring on our finger. It just sits around their little leg. Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah. Eleanor, have you got a question there that you want to ask?
There's another few questions actually come in about the terns and their journey. So do they rest anywhere? And how old are they when they first make that big journey?
Great questions. So what they found was these birds are a bit crazy, okay? But look, they must know what they're doing. They don't fly the shortest way. They don't just fly from Greenland to Ireland, which, by the way, on Google Maps looks like it's around the corner because I looked at it last night and it looks really close. It's not. They follow the wind, which means they don't have to keep flying. They can kind of just soar and the wind brings them. So in fact, you know what happens? They follow the wind and they can actually end up going from Greenland down around South America and back up and around South Africa and back up to Ireland. Crazy stuff. But they follow the wind so that they don't have to fly all the time. And when do they do it? They do it in the first year. They do it once they become adults, which is like year 1. They do it. Isn't that amazing? So they do stop off along the way. And they will stop in South America or they will stop in South Africa. But they have been known to fly 22,000 kilometers. Because of the rings on their legs, we can identify them. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. And we've got loads of questions coming through, so we're going to try and get through them.
Okay.
Try and share as much information as possible. This is a really good one from Miss Fahy. Is it okay to take things from the beach? That's a really interesting good question.
It is. And I purposely in my video said that. So normally when I bring groups of children out into woodlands or forests or grasslands, I say, please don't pick the flowers unless it's a daisy, because it's very common. Because when we pick them, they die. And it's no use then to the lovely butterflies and bees, the pollinators that need to eat the nectar. Okay. So I say, just look at them and take a picture of them or draw them. But the seashore is different because it's not like an animal is feeding off the nectar of a shell. So if you find one of these things, it's all right to take it, because actually a thing you can probably do is check and see if there's barnacles on it, like there. Do you see all the doors are open and broken off? That means there's no little animal in there. Probably have a look and see. And if the doors are closed, then maybe there's an animal in it, so leave it. If the doors are all broken, you can take it. And another thing is if the shell is open like that, you can see there's no little animal in it, so you can take it. But if it's closed, leave it. So would that answer your question?
Fantastic.
Would that be okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty good.
I want to jump in with a question there. There's so many questions coming in about the killer whale and John Coe. So a few people want to know, how did John Coe get his name? What do killer whales eat? Are killer whales the same as orcas? And how close to Ireland do they come?
Oh my
so
gosh,
many
these are
questions
brilliant.
About killer whales.
Okay, John Coe, I have to put my hand up and say I don't know where he got his name. So I'm going to Google that because now I want to find out. I don't know. So how close does he come? He doesn't come right up to the beach because he's huge. Okay, he's out quite a distance. He was seen off Howth by a Howth fisherman. And again, teachers, you can Google this. Kids, you shouldn't use Google by yourselves, even 6th class, okay? You really should be having an adult with you because some things can pop up that you don't want to see. So if you Google Howth and John Coe, or if you Google Kerry or Cork or anywhere Irish coast and John Coe, you will see that he's generally seen by fishermen out in their boats out a couple of miles out because he's very big. What does he eat? So he's a top predator in the web of life, in the food chain in the ocean. So he eats seals. Yes, he does. He eats small whales. And when I say small, I mean like they're called minke whales, which would be the length of my sitting room. And I like normal 3-bed semi-detached sitting room. Okay, that's a small whale. So he'll eat that. So he tends to eat animals like that and fish. He will eat fish, but he likes to eat big stuff. Okay, now, can I just tell you a story? Sometimes we'll see documentaries of killer whales throwing a seal or a dolphin into the air, okay? And it is a form of playing with it. It's very unfair. It's a bit like a cat playing with a mouse before they kill it. They will play with it with their paw. We wonder why that is. I think it might be to stun the animal, okay, before they eat it, to make it easier, to make them stop moving. But they don't come in close to shore. They're out a few miles. Does that help?
Really good. Thank you so much. Yeah. Lucky we're all interested in the killer whales. Absolutely. Now, this is a really interesting question from Miss Hayes, who's in Cavan. Now, you have little beaches on lakes, so they have lots of lakes there around Cavan. What water life do they have there? I mean, that's probably a whole different show.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What a great question. And I should have thought of that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we were talking about seashores, but you're right. The beaches on lakes also can have shells. Now, the kinds of things you find are called freshwater. Do I have one? They'd be similar, okay? You get freshwater mussels. So they would be very similar to our mussels here, but they wouldn't have the barnacles. So imagine you get that, but without the barnacle, and they're smaller. You get freshwater clams, okay? You will also get a lot, what's thrown up on freshwater beaches would be reed stalks, so long, hollow pieces of wood from the bull reed that grows along the edge. And actually, these are good to gather because because the insides are hollow, if you put them in your garden, they can be used as little pollinator hibernation spaces. Okay, so that's a nice thing to do. So yes, there are freshwater sea creatures. Not probably as many would come up onto because there's no tide to wash them up. They tend to stay in the water, okay? But you will find them in the water as opposed to finding them up because there's no tide. But you will find them along the edges, and they're freshwater. They're freshwater mussels and freshwater clams.
Fantastic.
That's really cool. I have a few questions for you, and they're about your experience. So Rachel would like to know, what is the strangest thing you have found on the beach? And someone else has asked, where is it? Mark O'Hara has asked, how do you know the name of everything?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the strangest thing, well, probably the saddest thing I found was a dead porpoise. Do you remember I said on Muckmara, the pig of the sea? I found a dead one on the beach in County Clare a few years ago. I have to say I was very fascinated by it, and I actually showed it to my kids. But I was kind of sad about that too. What else have I found? These doozers. That's pretty cool. I love finding all the wood and bits and pieces thrown up onto the shore. And actually, do you know what I've been doing with groups who live along the coast? We've been making coastal gardens and growing plants in them that will feed pollinators, but that live along the edge of the coast. But we put in stuff that we find on the beach. So we'll make a log pile out of all the bits of wood that we find. And then, do you know what goes in under the log pile? Little lizards and frogs and insects, all kinds of things like that. So I love finding wood and imagining that came from a big ship somewhere over in Africa or something like that. So that's cool. What was the other part of that question?
How do you know the name of everything?
Oh, do you know, practice. And when I do, I drive my kids nuts because I point at something and I go, oh, that's a bird's foot trefoil. And they're like, Mum, it's just a yellow flower. So if I don't know the name of it, I will take a picture and I look it up because I'm really curious and I just love nature and I love to know what stuff is. So that's really it. You don't know all this stuff. We're lucky with smartphones now, aren't we? We can take pictures and then identify stuff afterwards. That's kind of how.
Now, Máiread, I'm sad to say that we're out of time and there are still more questions, but that's normal. Thank you so much for sharing your fabulous, amazing knowledge with us. The comments from all the teachers and their classes is very positive, so
good.
No surprises there. Now, when things get back to normal, I assume that you're available to go in and meet with schools, and even when things are not back to normal through this kind of format. Is that right?
That's right. I do. I mean, I'm a heritage and schools specialist, so I go out through the heritage and schools medium, but I've also been doing it because heritage and schools stopped because of COVID. Schools have been asking me to go out just privately, and I do that because we're doing it. It's important to get outside, isn't it? And we're doing it in the pods. We're doing it in the small pods. And we're not touching any stuff that we share with groups. So it's all very clean and very safe. And I think it's kind of better to get outside, isn't it? And see
100%.
what's out there. So yeah, definitely. The more we can get outside, the better. That's what I say.
And your website is NatureCubsIreland, is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Now, we have another presentation there next week. So 9:30 next week, same day. And we look forward to seeing you all then. But for now, it's Salon.
Slán, everybody.
Slán.
Bye.